You look perfect. Fly!
Oh. Did you bleed on the carrots?
Will I die?
Yep, probably.
Grandma!
Happy Christmas.
You're still alive?
Yes, I think so.
Jesus, they're early.
Tony and Simon robbed the petrol station.
Oh, what fun.
We make tremendous criminals. I felt so good.
We're all getting old.
Well, we were getting old.
It's just one potato each.
Just one for everyone.
Did anyone watch the Queen's speech?
Well, she's clearly in some bunker set up, you know, filled with tins of baked beans and dog food.
Here's to the lives that we've shared. To our beautiful children. Our beautiful friends. May we rest in peace. I just think we should be honest with the kids.
We know the Russians want us all dead. They're sending poisonous gas to kill us all in the morning. It's not the Russians, it's the planet. It's very upset.
It will kill anything and anyone that is still alive.
We should have all voted Green.
We just want to make sure that you understand that as your parents, we are not to blame. Clearly, it's not your fault either.
I've seen the road, and there is no way I'm living like that.
Tell our audience what the film is about and where did that story originate from?
I would say the film is a satirical kind of parody of the white middle classes in the UK, set during Christmas, with as they face the inevitable catastrophe that's coming towards them. And another brilliant kind of quote that Keira mentioned is that when she read the script, what she particularly liked about it was that it was a kind of female perspective of apocalypse. It wasn't
the maternal aspect of it.
Maternal aspect, but also the fact that when we see apocalyptic movies, they're all trying to stop the asteroid coming, or they're all trying to get everyone and move to a part of the country. They're all fighting it, right?
This is kind of more acceptance almost, yeah?
Yeah, and I think she found it was interesting to see, well, what do you do when you try and accept death, right? How do you make that acceptable? And death is not acceptable to anyone. And when you get to my age or a certain age, you start to realize that you're getting closer to death than you were to youth.
Now, was this always going to be a Christmas film, or where did that seasonal aspect come into play?
Well, the whole thing just happened. Like I said, I came back from JoJo and I was like, okay, I need to write a comedy. And I knew that I didn't have to deliver anything particularly for anyone else. So I was just like, okay, I just sat down and started writing. It all just kind of came together. And I think when I'm asked to consciously explain the choices, it wasn't like I was like, do I need this? Do I need this? It just came out. But I think what was interesting was this debate I have with my kids is like kids are taught in our culture to be seen and not heard. And the point is, it's important that children are allowed a voice. They have to inherit our mistakes, so they should be allowed an opinion, and they should be granted the chance to be heard and to be allowed to speak the truth. But Christmas was the perfect landscape because I think we try and be our best selves at Christmas, and there's a sentimentality that's been hardwired into us. It's like it's a hopeful time of the year. So to mix hope with despair, I thought were the perfect elements. I mean, everything about the film, the volume is dialed up high on everything. So it's like, how do you take both? How do you create conflict? When you start writing stories, you learn that conflict equals drama, but like, what is conflict in a story? So for me, the conflicts are just playing with the opposing elements of everything. Love, hate, trust, distrust, hope, despair. And that's really why those two genres work so beautifully with the Christmas movie and the apocalyptic movie.
But you touched upon a little bit today, but you've also said before that one of the main reasons you wanted to make this film was to start conversations, especially with your son. What specific conversations did you have in mind? Was it about the aspect of mortality, or was there more to it than that?
Oh, I don't think I wanted my children to have to talk about mortality so much, because they're kids. They can't possibly. I mean, they know we're not going to be living forever. So I think my kids are kind of looking forward to the day where they don't have to be having in their face every day. But I think really the question is that we often say to our kids, you know, we didn't have that growing up. You're lucky. You have things we didn't have. And it's such a boring conversation for kids. They're like, who cares? And it also, you can't expect a child to understand what they don't have. But what I do try and say to my kids is that we're your parents and we don't get it always right, you know? And I want my kids to not just accept bad decisions. Like, you know, you always say to your child, if you were told to jump off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff? So I'm trying to train my children to thinking about other people and to find their own sense of self and their own trust. It took me a long time to find that as an adult. So I want my children, and if I can be the person that can mirror that or challenge that, then they're safe to do that with me. So I want them to know that I don't always get it right. Their teachers don't always get it right. Government doesn't always get it right. It's not to not trust the system, but to question the morality within the system and to say, is it right that I get to sleep at night in a nice cozy bed? And there are children living in the refugee camps sleeping in snow. They can't be responsible for that. But as adults, they might be able to help. So really, I want them to know that there are people in the world who can make things different. And if they choose that path, they might be better equipped for that. So I'm not trying to lecture or preach, but just give them a supportive environment to question.
Did you always have Roman in mind when you were writing this, or did he find his way into the film in a different way?
I definitely had him in mind. I'd written other scripts that I wanted him to be in. I'd written a script ages ago that I wanted him to do before he was in JoJo. Because Roman's got an old soul in him, and he was born, and 6 months later I became pregnant, and his brothers came out 13 months later. So he's always says, you know, I could have had a perfect life if I was a single child. And he's got these beautiful brothers who are incredible children, but he's had his own difficulty, and also he's had to put up with me as a mother. So he's always been in touch with a truth of the world.
Well, and of course, we've got to chat about the wonderful Matthew Goode. Given that he has children as well, what was his reaction to the story when you got to talk to him about it?
I think you know probably a little bit about this. So casting the character of Simon was very important. And Matthew Vaughn was absolutely fundamental that the person should be a parent. And I was a bit on the fence about that. I was like, we just need a good actor. Actors can act. And he was like, they have to be a parent. And really, Simon was one of the last people we cast. And Matthew Vaughn had just worked with Matthew Goode. And I didn't know Matthew Goode. I've seen his work. Obviously, I knew exactly who he was. And he read the script and he said to Matthew Vaughn, there's no effing way I'm doing this film, right? And Matthew Vaughn said, just sit on it for a day or two. And we'd had this response a few times with some of our crew and some of our cast that they'd read it and go, this is horrible. And then they'd come back a day later and go, I can't stop thinking about it. I have to work on this film. So he came back and he said, actually, I've really thought about it and I've imagined the film as if I was dealing with my friend's kids. And then he wanted to do it.
You did mention that this was shot pre-COVID. And in fact, I think was this the last film in London to be filmed before COVID sent everyone into lockdown?
We wrapped 2 days early. So we wrapped on a Wednesday, and the UK were going into lockdown on a Monday. And a lot of the cast were frightened. We had to release casts early. We had to shoot scenes in one takes because they had to get on flights, and Billy had to get to France and Annabelle had to get to America. So the borders were shutting. I mean, it was chaos. It was chaos. And then I started to feel immoral. I started to feel like, is this the right thing to do? And a credit to Keira, she was like, I will shoot tonight till 9 o'clock, because we'd wrapped every day at 6. She was like, I'll shoot till 9 o'clock and then I'm done. And I think everyone else should be done. And I have to credit her to this, because I was busy in the mindset of, how do I finish the film? You know, this isn't my money. And how do I protect my crew? How do they? And I called Matthew Vaughn. I said, can we wrap tonight? And he said, yeah. So we didn't tell the crew, but when Keira, we said, that's a wrap on Keira. And then I said, and that's a picture wrap. And then I went into a room and started crying. I could cry thinking about it. And it was a relief, because it was scary.
Is there one moment from the set, maybe it was that last moment that you talked about, that you either want to be able to remember, or definitely just regardless or not, will absolutely positively just remember for the rest of your life?
I think I'll always remember making this film, and I'll always have a bit of a heartbreak that it didn't last forever, because I had waited so long, and there was something about the shoot that it couldn't have been more perfect, weirdly enough. Like, I really did have an extraordinary cast. The actors had talent, immeasurable talent. They just kept giving, and they were trusting, and they were kind to the children, and they were kind to each other. And there was room for people to argue and debate and question things. So that was perfect. The crew were brilliant, and they were hardworking, and they were supportive. I mean, I couldn't have asked for more. I had producers who believed in the material. Like, I'd waited years for that opportunity, and I loved it. And I think it was a nice shoot. I think people enjoyed it. So I will never forget, but I will, as I just told you that story about the rap unit. It makes me cry. It was very emotional. There was a lot to be responsible for.
Lastly, what do you hope that audiences will take away from the film as they leave the theater this season?
Well, I know what I intended with the project, which was to bring the conversation into the home, because I'm that person who gets invited to a party and wants to talk about intense things. They're like, chill out, it's a party, chill out. So I think I hoped, I didn't want to lecture anyone in this film, but I am saying two things really, which is why do people with money and privilege get to make decisions for everyone in the world? Do we choose the right people to decide for us? And as luckily some of our countries, obviously we have the chance to vote. Like, who do we vote for? Who do we choose to, who do we empower to make choices for society? Should it automatically just be someone who's had a good education, has got a silly posh accent like me? Or do we make decisions that means that the underrepresented are cared for? And I do think that we have to have an element of truth in the household where children are allowed to be heard, and they're going to inherit our mistakes. So we should be responsible for owning them. Not necessarily, we can't change anything. We can't all become activists or all become soldiers or all become medical workers, but we can facilitate the truth in the home without it being a constant kind of debate. But that for me is something I hope the film provokes, which is questions that people want to talk about.
Camille, thank you so much for your time. And everyone, go see this film, Silent Night. It's in theaters December 3rd. Ladies and gentlemen, Camille Griffin.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.